So last week I was in this business group and I saw someone post about this specific saying. They said, if you're not scaling, you're dying. And I thought, honestly, that's the biggest lie that I feel like we've been sold as business owners. And this pressure that we have to constantly grow bigger is keeping us from growing deeper. So if you have been following this episode or this series or this season, you'll know that I've been talking a lot about this major healing that I've been going through and mindset shifts that I really want to focus on within the community, because I feel like the way that business is that we have to choose between our business and our faith, or we have to sacrifice our family time to grow a business. And it just is this big circle, right? This thing that, you can't have one or over the other, and it just can't live within one another. I just don't know what the right way is to say that. Like, they can't be this ecosystem that I really believe that they should be. And what ends up happening is that our beliefs end up dictating how we run our business. And obviously, when we're rooted in our faith, that's our number one value, our beliefs. And I think that us as kingdom-driven entrepreneurs, we have to keep that front of mind. And so I really, I knew when I started Eden and Empire that was a component, but I think that I had shied away from that aspect of really sharing and focusing on the mindset around what it takes to run a business, because I believe that so much of your business and the success of it is driven around what you think and how you develop your mindset and the way that you operate. So for me, I of course shared my healing journey, but today I kind of want to tackle something that I touched on a little bit in the last episode that I feel like deserves more attention. And I think that it's so important because it's stealing people's joy and their peace. And I know in a lot of ways it stole mine. And I see it every day when I'm talking to entrepreneurs and talking to other women, is this relentless pressure to have to scale and to perform. So it's probably just because everywhere we look on social media, it's scale to 6-7 figures and build a team and create passive income, which I will say all of those things are amazing, and I believe that we will all achieve those. They are very important within business. So I don't want you all to think that I'm saying they have no meaning, right? And the things that people are saying on social media they're not valid, because they are. But the thing is that it's also okay if you never hit 6 figures or 7 figures. I mean, hitting 6 figures, I want you to run a profitable business and to support yourself and to do, but is that what God is calling you to do? Is that what He needs for you in your life and your ministry? Why do you need those things? I think is more the mindset that I'm trying to help kind of reframe. Because are we doing it because somebody on social media told us we needed to do it, and that it's, this glamorous thing if you hit 6 or 7 figures? Because I think that ultimately God, if you haven't achieved it, it's because God knows that you're not ready for that next level, because it brings so much. And the piece of hitting the 6 and 7 figures and creating, all of these amazing things like growing your team and all of that requires a level of mental capacity as a business owner that they don't share online, what that actually looks like as you're going to 6 figures, 7 figures, growing a team, creating all of these offers or, different avenues of your business. Can you even handle that? And I would say most people don't share what that looks like on a deeper level, what that means to go to that place. And so there has to be more meaning behind just hitting those figures or those numbers to you, other than just hitting it because somebody else said that you should. So what I've been wrestling a lot with in this healing season is, what if God's definition of success looks completely different than what you're seeing on social media, or like what these coaches are telling you need to do? the world's definition of what business needs to look like. And I believe that it is entirely different. And that's one of the main reasons I created Eden and Empire, because I don't feel like the world has it in the way that God has intended for it. You know, what if He called us to go deeper instead of wider? Right? When I first started Eden and Empire, I was so driven by a dollar amount, and I was going to help this many women and do all of these things. And I felt like when I wasn't immediately on track for that. I was like, I'm failing in some way. And I talk about this in one of the episodes, but I think ultimately that ended up stemming from feeling like I was failing God, because He's my ultimate Father, and that I wasn't, I was already letting Him down in some capacity. But I feel like if I were to speak to the me, right? Like if I were coaching myself as I would coach another woman in the community, I would tell her, like, you're not doing anything wrong. All of these things that you see when women are scaling quickly, or, they're going and having this massive success, it doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. And I would also tell her that God created you differently, and what His intention for your business is so different than what His intention is for somebody else's. And so you can't compare that. You also can't compare your chapter right now to someone else's chapter, because you don't see what goes on behind the scenes. And I feel like when I took that approach, it really hit me. And I was trying to force my calling into something that was everybody else's blueprint. And it bothered me that I coach about it, and I wasn't able to live through that in my own mentality. And I see so often we're told grow and scale and grow bigger. And if we're not doing those things, then we're somehow failing. And what I've learned in just being in community with hundreds of successful women, like very successful by what the world defines success as, right? Like the number, amount, and these businesses that on paper or on social media look like they're just thriving. First of all, 9 times out of 10, they don't have it figured out, and it's not as successful as what we're perceiving it to be. But ultimately, it's just something that I feel like we're not called to do. And we get so driven by the numbers and the dollar amounts that we forget the real reason why we started our business. And we end up, again, like I talked about in the last episode, is you're going towards this moving goalpost. And I started looking at, okay, what does actually scaling look like? Is bigger actually better? Or, what would serving 1,000 people look like? Like, okay, I'm serving 1,000 people, but serving 100 people on a deeper level, is that somehow lesser than serving 1,000 people? No, it's not. In fact, by you deeply serving 100 people, what that means is that those 100 people that you help on such a degree will end up impacting so many more people, because it creates a ripple effect. And every time I see somebody talking about scaling and how, they've had, or they want a revenue increase or the team growth or the freedom that they think that they've created, what ends up happening is that they rarely talk about what that's going to cost them or what it did cost them. And I think a lot of times we forget that when we're pouring so much into our business and we're not doing it in a way that's sustainable, we're sacrificing something on a deeper level. And most of the time, that's our family. Most of the time, that's our faith, because you can't be all things at all times. And I think, first of all, we forget that very easily because we're so distracted by the idea of what success looks like, and we forget the original reason why we created our business. And most of the time, that's to have more freedom with our family. And of course, you can have those things at that level, but I don't know. I used to be in this mindset where you couldn't have a successful business and a thriving family and your faith. But I think that the reason why I thought that is because of what other people's definition of success was. And what I saw from that is most people sacrificed their family to build a big business. And in turn, what I realized is, what if I readjust what my definition of success is? And if I am going to get to those numbers, can I do this sustainably without sacrificing the things that are the most important to me? And so I went from thinking that you couldn't have those things to realizing that you absolutely can have them. And it needs to be done in a way that honors all of these things. And so I don't know, as I grew. And I want to say this too, scaling is not wrong for everybody. I do believe in abundance, and I believe that you are meant to have the things that you desire, because I believe that God placed those desires on your heart. But I think the thing that we miss is the way that we're trying to attain success. The way that we view scaling, it's most of the time at the detriment of our health, of our family, of our health physically and mentally, and just it ends up just creating this thing that steals this joy from us. And I think that there is a need for us to scale, of course, right? Like that's why Eden and Empire focuses on, the branding, the marketing, and the holistic business approach, but doing it in a way that honors what is important to you. And I believe, what is the point of building a massively successful business if there's nothing else at the end of it, right? If it's just the money in your bank account. And I love to look at Jesus in all of this and think of, okay, well, how did he run his ministry? And I believe our businesses are also ministry, that we are called to help spread the word and build the kingdom and whatnot. And Jesus had 12 disciples, right? He had other people that were helping him with it, but he had 12. He didn't have 12,000. And he spoke to crowds, and, he was speaking to massive numbers, but he built the deepest connection in small groups. And he could have stayed in one place and built just this massive following, but instead he was more focused on what I believe is, serving in different communities in different ways. And even though the crowds wanted to make him king, right? Like he could have had all of these, amazing titles, which he is king. He has all the titles, but he withdrew and he said no. He consistently withdrew so that he could serve in a better capacity. He, valued relationship over the numbers and obedience to God more than anything, more than just being popular. And I think a lot of times we're more focused on what the titles bring rather than anything else. And I'm guilty of that. But when I even look at the parable of talents, there were servants that were given these, I think they're called talents, right? Like that's the money, the currency. I think that's what it's called. They were given 5 talents, and the servants that did it in a way that grew, and I'm trying to figure out how to say this. I don't know why I'm blanking. They took what they had and they multiplied it, and they did it in a way that was impactful to the kingdom. They were the ones that were praised versus, the person that kept it close to their heart, and they did something important with it, essentially, is what I'm trying to say, and they grew the kingdom. And I think that ultimately, if you had, God gave you this business, so what are you doing with it? Are you doing it just for the praise and the recognition and the dollar amounts and all of these things? Or are you doing it with him in mind? And so I don't know. I think that so often we forget what the real purpose is behind what we're doing as business owners, as women of faith, or whatnot. But I don't know. Sometimes I think all we need is just this permission. It's, I don't know, like a permission slip from me or someone you love, or someone that you're close with, just to say that it's okay, that you don't have to build fast. It's okay to build slowly, to build from a place of true depth. And the thing that God showed me, and I tell women this all the time because I believe that He placed this on my heart, but I think that He really calls us to build it strong, and those people will come. And I think that you sometimes just need to hear and be given the permission that it's okay for your business to serve your life instead of consuming it. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to grow. So please don't take that from my message today. There's nothing wrong to build big if God is calling you to do it. But there's also nothing wrong with staying intentionally small and growing where you feel it to be your most faithful. Just do what feels the best to you. Growing big or staying small, there's no right or wrong way to do it. You have to do with it what you feel called to do. So I hope that, that helps kind of shift things for you, because I know when I started looking at my business in a different perspective, it changed everything for me. So until the next episode, guys, I will see you there.